When people think of milk going sour, they usually think of something gone wrong, something with a strange smell, an odd look, and no future except the trash. But thousands of years ago, that same moment may have meant something very different. Instead of throwing spoiled milk away, people began noticing that it could become something else, something worth keeping, shaping, and eventually eating. Over time, that unlikely transformation gave rise to one of the world's most loved foods, cheese, with its rich texture, gentle sweetness, and light tang, which makes its story even more surprising. So how did spoiled milk become cheese? One of the oldest foods humans still eat. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. What we call spoiled may once have been discovery. Cheese was probably not born from a plan. It likely began among some of the earliest farmers in the Fertile Crescent after sheep and goats had been domesticated for milk. Fresh milk, left in warmth for hours, started to change. The smell sharpened, the texture thickened. What had seemed smooth and whole began separating into soft clumps and pale liquid. To us, that looks like spoilage. But early farmers lived much closer to scarcity. In that world, change did not automatically mean useless. The better question was simpler. Was any of it worth keeping? That habit of attention may have mattered more than genius. Many discoveries begin not when someone creates something entirely new, but when someone notices that a strange transformation still holds value. And once you look at cheese that way, it stops feeling mysterious. It begins to look like the natural result of what milk does under the right conditions. What really happens when milk spoils? When fresh milk sits in warm conditions, bacteria begin feeding on its sugars. As they do, they produce lactic acid. That growing acidity slowly destabilizes the proteins that help milk stay smooth and uniform. Once that balance breaks, the liquid can no longer remain what it was. Milk that once looked even and pale begins to divide into two parts: soft, lumpy solids called curds, and the thinner liquid left behind, later called whey. That is the basic transformation behind cheese. It does not begin with magic. It begins with a reaction milk is already capable of on its own. What early people discovered was not some impossible trick. It was that this natural separation could still be useful, and that mattered more than it sounds. Milk is one of those foods that feels complete while it lasts, but fragile once it starts to change. So the first real step in cheese was probably not making. It was noticing. Noticing that the solids were different from the liquid, that they could be drained and eaten, that what looked ruined from one angle might look edible from another. Later, names like curds and whey would make the process sound familiar. But in the beginning, it was people paying attention to a strange change happening in front of them. And once they understood that the change could be read, they could start asking a bigger question. Why keep it at all? Why early humans kept it instead of rejecting it? Milk was precious because it packed so much nourishment into one food. It carried protein, fat, and important minerals, which made it valuable in early farming life. But it also had two serious weaknesses. It spoiled quickly, especially in warmth, and it contained a great deal of lactose, a sugar many human bodies struggled to digest well. Cheese changed that equation. Once milk separated and the useful solids were kept, the food became more concentrated and usually lower in lactose than the fresh milk it came from. It was easier to carry, easier to portion, and far easier to preserve. In a world with no refrigeration, that was not a small improvement. It was close to a survival tool. This is why cheese mattered so early. It was not just milk in another form. It was a way to protect milk's value against time, distance, and scarcity. Nutrients that would have disappeared quickly in liquid form could now last longer. During long winters, poor harvests, or movement across dry land, that mattered. Some of the earliest known pottery fragments from what is now Turkey still hold traces of cheese and butter. Cheese was not a side curiosity. It was useful enough to be made, stored, and remembered. It turned something perishable into something more dependable. And once people understood that, they began learning how to repeat it on purpose. How accident became technique. At first, the process may have been simple. Keep the curds, pour off the whey, and eat what remained before it changed too far. But over time, people realized they did not have to stop at rescue. They could intervene. They could shape the result. If curds were drained longer, less moisture remained. If salt was added, the cheese kept better and gained flavor. If it was pressed, it became firmer and easier to store. If it was dried, it could last longer. And if it was aged, texture deepened and flavor grew more complex. A rough survival food slowly became something with character. This shift matters because cheese became important not only when it was discovered, but when it became controllable. Humans were no longer just saving curds from waste. They were learning how to guide milk through change and turn that change into craft. Rennet marked a major step in that process. Taken from the stomachs of certain mammals, it could make coagulation happen faster and more reliably. People no longer had to wait passively for milk to sour on its own. They could help the process along, with more intention and consistency. What had once depended on chance began to depend on skill. By then, cheese was no longer only an emergency answer to fragile milk. It was becoming a body of knowledge, something repeated, refined, and passed on. And once a method becomes portable, it starts to travel. The same simple idea begins taking on very different local lives. The same idea became many different cheeses. Cheese did not spread as one fixed recipe. It spread as one useful principle. Separate the milk, preserve the solids, and shape them to fit local life. That is why the core idea could stay simple while the outcomes became wildly different. In South Asia, milk could be curdled with acids like lemon juice, vinegar, or yogurt, then gathered into paneer, a soft, mild cheese that fit naturally into curries, sauces, or quick-fried dishes. It did not need long aging or a sharp bite to matter. Elsewhere, different conditions created different answers. Greeks made salty brined feta, a cheese shaped by climate, storage, and taste. In Egypt, goat's milk cheese could be strained with reed mats. Among Mongolian herders, yak's milk became hard-dried bioslag, built for movement and endurance. Under Roman rule, dry cheese became a practical ration for the army guarding imperial borders. In each case, cheese answered a local need. Then there were the monasteries of medieval Europe, especially the Benedictine ones, where patience became part of the method. There, cheese-making moved beyond preservation into refinement. Different milks, aging methods, and local conditions gradually helped shape cheeses we still know today, including Parmesan, Roquefort, Munster, and several Swiss varieties. In the Alps, cheese became so profitable that by the late 14th century, the trade around Gruyere was worth fighting over. So cheese did not survive for thousands of years by staying the same. It survived because it was flexible. Different animals, landscapes, and habits kept remaking it, which leads to the simplest way to understand cheese at all. The 5-second rule. After all the history, technique, and variety, the clearest way to understand cheese is this. It is milk that has been separated and preserved. The liquid does not stay whole. The solids are gathered, kept, and shaped into something more stable than fresh milk ever was on its own. That changes how cheese looks. It is not just processed milk in a vague modern sense. It is milk transformed to last longer, travel farther, and feed people when fresh milk could not. Whether it is soft or hard, mild or sharp, fresh or aged, that old idea is still there. Once you see that, cheese becomes easier to read. Beneath all its forms, it is still one of humanity's oldest answers to a simple problem: how to keep nourishment from disappearing too quickly. And maybe that is why cheese has lasted so long in human life. It began with a different response to change. What looked like spoilage became survival. Milk going sour sounds like failure because, in modern life, it usually is. But cheese still carries the memory of an older way of seeing. People stopped looking at changed milk as something automatically lost. They learned to ask a better question: what is still here, and what can it become? That is what makes cheese feel bigger than food. It is not only ancient, it is evidence of a very early human instinct, not just to fear change, but to read it, work with it, and keep what still has value. From early pottery to Mesopotamian records of cheese quotas, from Roman rations to monastery cellars, cheese kept proving the same point in different forms. What lasts is not always what stays unchanged, but what humans learn to preserve. Today, the world produces tens of billions of kilograms of cheese each year, and many local farms still make it by hand, following a logic that reaches back toward the Neolithic world. So the next time cheese seems ordinary, remember what it represents. What looked like spoilage became one of the oldest ways humans turned change into survival. What kind of cheese do you enjoy the most, and did you ever think of it as a food that began with milk going wrong? Let me know in the comments below. And if this video changed the way you look at something as ordinary as cheese, subscribe to the channel for more simple things with surprisingly deep stories behind them.